In Europe, tensions rose between Belarus and Poland after Warsaw accused Minsk forces of violating its airspace, an allegation denied by the Belarusian authorities. Russia is ready to return immediately to grain export deal known as Black Sea Initiative if the conditions are met. France is preparing to fly its citizens out of Niger 6 days after a coup d'etat overthrew the president Mohammed Bazoum. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Ana Rosabal from the teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. In Argentina, indigenous people of the Tercer Madón de la Paz arrived on Tuesday in Buenos Aires after a week-long caravan from the province of Jujuy in defense of the territories and natural resources and against the constitutional reform approved by governor and vice presidential candidate Geraldo Morales. The arrival of almost 1,000 demonstrators in the Argentine capital coincides with the date of the Pachamama, so there will be a ceremony in homage to Mother Earth and other activities. The mobilization to Buenos Aires is being held to demand that the Supreme Court of Justice rule on the unconstitutionality of the reform of the Jujuy Constitution and for the National Congress to sanction the law of indigenous community property. In the province of Jujuy, demonstrators have denounced institutional violence, persecution, and detention of protesters. The former deputy director of the Brazilian intelligence agency, São Moura Era Cunha, testified before the first Joint Parliamentary Commission investigating the coup acts of January 8th. At the hearing, the then head of the Brazilian intelligence agency warned the former chief minister of the Institutional Security Office of the Lula government, General Edson Gonçalves Dias, for aggravating the risks of the takeover of the headquarters of the three branches of government on January 8th. In declarations to parliamentarians, Cunha assured to have forwarded information about the arrival of about 105 buses that arrived in Brasilia with coup supporters and sympathizers of ex-President Bolsonaro. Social organizations and members of the international community in Colombia began a humanitarian caravan in the northeast of Antioquia to verify the population's complaints about human rights violations.
To verify the different human rights violations, such as the massive displacement that took place on 29th and 30 July in the villages of Arenales, Jagua, and Rancho Quemado, due to the confrontations between the different groups operating in the region. We will be verifying each of these violations, including the murder of our comrade Carlos Roldan. We hope that after this caravan, we will be able to provide you with a big report and offer a big press conference on each of the violations that we find.
Representative of the Network of Brotherhood and Solidarity with Colombia, REDER, assured that a delegation of 7 internationalists are accompanying the humanitarian caravan in order to make visible the human rights violations in northeast of the Department of Antioquia.
We are 7 internationalists, 7 foreigners from Chile, Spain, the Basque Country, and Canada. And the aim of our presence here is to raise awareness of the human rights violations occurring in this region over the last few months as a result of the intense paramilitary onslaught that has caused the displacement of significant parts of the population. And the objective is to see what state they are in and give testimony of what they tell us in order to draw attention to this difficult situation.
In Bolivia, President Luis Arce called for the maintenance of the preventive measures against COVID-19 after decreeing the end of the sanitary emergency. The Bolivian president explained the importance of applying preventive measures to avoid any outbreaks of the disease. He stressed that diagnosis, mass vaccination, and hospital equipment were effective against COVID-19 and contributed to Bolivia's overcoming from the international health emergency. The Minister of Health, Maria René Castro, explained how this new phase will be carried out.
Today is really important to remember that we are issuing the National Epidemiological Alert, and as it is an alert, it contains 14 points that are also important for the population to know. If I have a cold, if my 7-year-old child has flu today, it is our obligation to wear our mask properly, wash our hands frequently, and support us by keeping the security measures. If I have respiratory disease or any of you have it, it is important out of responsibility to our family and loved ones, to our community, we use biosecurity measures.
Let's take a short break, but remember you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you'll find news in different formats, new days, and more. All studies coming up, stay with us. Welcome back. In Europe, tensions grow between Belarus and Poland after Warsaw accused the Minsk forces of allegedly violating the airspace, an act rejected by the Belarusian authorities. The complaint was issued by the Polish foreign minister after two Belarusian helicopters allegedly violated Polish airspace, an incident which, for Warsaw, is yet another element of the escalation of tension on the border between the two countries. For its part, the Belarusian Ministry of Defense described the accusations as prosperous and further claimed that the Polish military and political leadership is once again seeking to justify the buildup of forces and equipment near the Belarusian border. On Tuesday, Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko said that he plans to expedite the establishment of a contractor army using PMC Wonder fighters billeted in Belarus as the backbone of these forces. At the same time, the Belarusian leader stressed that his country is not going to wage war. Belarusian Defense Minister Viktor Krenin said earlier that contracted soldiers account for some 60% of the Belarusian army. A 2-year contract can be signed by either those who never served in the army or those taken in for compulsory military service. According to early reports, the Belarusian Defense Minister and the command of the Wagner Group elaborated a plan of cooperation for the near future. Wagner instructors and units are already involved in training missions. The Belarusian side has not disclosed how many Wagner fighters are staying in its territory. Russia is ready to return to grain export deal, so-called Black Sea initiative, without delay. Moscow has formulated 5 conditions for the extension of the food pact. Among them are reconnecting its agricultural bank, Russell Coast Bank, to the SWIFT system, resuming shipment of agricultural machinery, spare parts and maintenance, lifting the ban on access to ports, reactivating the Togliatti-Odessa ammonia pipeline, and unblocking foreign assets and accounts of Russian companies involved in the production and transport of food and fertilizers. On July 22, 2022, Russia, Turkey, and the United Nations signed an agreement to unblock the export of grains and fertilizer from Ukraine through the Black Sea, while the Ukrainian government signed a similar document with Ankara and a UN representative. On Tuesday, the G20 Ministerial Conference on Women's Empowerment began in India. The first day of the summit was attended by more than 300 people, including international delegates from the G20 countries, as well as for guest countries and 8 international organizations. Participants will discuss until Thursday, August 3rd, on education, a revolutionary path to women's empowerment, a strategy for winning in equity and economics, as well as building a partnership to promote women's leadership at all levels. The deliberations will be reflected in a summary to be given as recommendations to the G20 leaders, who will meet on September 9-10 in New Delhi. This Tuesday, Indian authorities imposed a curfew, suspended internet service, and had ordered schools and colleges to remain shut after deadly communal clashes spread to Gurugram city, some 30 kilometers from New Delhi. Local news reported the violence began on Monday afternoon when Hindus and Muslims clashed in Haryana's North district during a religious procession by a Hindu nationalist group. 2 officers and 4 civilians were killed in the violence, and dozens of cars were set on fire. However, there were no reports of fresh violence from either place on Tuesday. In Pakistan, Chinese Vice Premier He Fan arrived in Islamabad to mark the 10th anniversary of an enormous economic plan that is the cornerstone of Beijing Belt and Road Initiative. Since it started in 2013, the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor has seen tens of billions of dollars funneled into massive transport, energy, and infrastructure projects. In recent years, Beijing has been one of Islamabad's most reliable foreign partners, rarely providing financial assistance to bail out its often struggling neighbor. Beijing granted Pakistan a 2-year rollover on a $2.4 billion loan, giving the debt-saddled nation much-needed breathing space as it tackles the balance of payment crisis. An IMF report last year said China and its commercial banks held about 30% of Pakistan's total external debt.
When CPAC came to Pakistan's rescue. And as you said, that some of the projects were completed in a record period of time. This was under the joint leadership of President Xi Jinping and Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif. Now we are entering the second phase of CPAC, which is even more interesting and extremely helpful in promoting investments, progress and prosperity in Pakistan and also in the region.
We have a second short break coming up, but before we invite you to visit our YouTube channel at teleSUR English. There you'll be able to rewatch our interviews, sub-stories, special broadcastings and more. Hit the subscribe button and activate the notification bell to stay up to date on the world's most recent events. Final short break, don't go away. Welcome back. On Tuesday, France prepared to fly out its citizens from Niger 6 days after a coup that overthrew President Mohammed Bazoum. After hostile crowds gathered on Sunday outside the French embassy, and Niger accused France of plotting to intervene militarily, Paris decided it would withdraw its citizens and has sent 3 planes to the capital Niamey, and the first flight has evacuated 262 people on board over the 600 French nationals in Niger. France also indicated that it is willing to take other European nationals on board the evacuation flights. Likewise, Italy and Spain had all announced evacuation from Niger. On Sunday, the Special Representative for West Africa and the Sahel, Leonardo Santos Simão, informed that the Economic Community of West African States are preparing themselves to use force if necessary in Niger.
The summit gave 1 week to the military junta to hand back power to President Bazoum. If this doesn't happen after that week, then other options are on the making, including military intervention, including use of force. That's what they said. That period, in my view, is try to give time for a peaceful settlement to take place. So, well, it's difficult because the situation is very fluid. What I know is that different member states are preparing themselves to use force if necessary. But as I said, the situation is fluid, but there are these efforts of find a peaceful solution for the problem. Everybody is giving priority to these efforts.
The latest coup d'etat in Niger has sparked regional and international tensions as it poses a threat to local stability and could become the token of other political actors. For an in-depth look at the subject, we have interviewed Kambali Musabuli, an analyst at the Congo-Kinshasa Research Center.
Region, French interest in Mali, in Burkina Faso, in Niger is mineral resources, natural resources. But the people of the region are saying, this is not the Berlin Conference anymore. We are in 2023. African people must control their land. They must control their resources. They must exploit those resources for the benefit of the masses. And you can see that in the protest. There was a coup in Niger, a military coup. The leaders have spoken. The people could have said, we're not in support of the coup. But why are thousands of people in the streets? So the people of West Africa are very clear about imperialism. They are very clear about French imperialism. And they're saying no to imperialism, and they are saying yes to a multipolar world. This is why you're seeing the Russian flag in this protest, where African people, where Nigerian people are saying that we do not want to stay connected to the West. We want to have partners who look at us with dignity, we treat us with respect, to build a new world that we want to see.
Musa Bouli also talked about how leaders must meet the aspiration of the people.
Years, that there will be more and more actions such as in Niger happening in Africa. Why is it happening? The people of Africa are being led by a comprador, an elite and this elite has no interest of the people. President Bazoum of Niger, who's been there since 2021, has not risen up to the aspirations of the people. There are so many cases of corruption. There are so many cases of sidelining of opposition leaders and so on. So the people are able to see what is unfolding in their country and in the region. So I can predict very easily that there will be other countries in West Africa who will face a similar situation, where the people themselves will rise up and say, we want leaders who represent our aspirations.
The Congo-Kinshasa Research Center analyst also stated that as we are in a new world, the African people are raising their voices and will be the powerful force that will move the African continent and humanity forward.
Are taking power, but they are listening to people. In the case of Mali, in the case of Burkina Faso, in the case of Niger, that the rhetoric they are actually sharing connects with the aspirations of the people. Will that continue for these leaders to be able to listen to the people? The struggle must continue, right? You know, the history of humanity is a history of class struggle. So the people of these countries, even though they have strong military forces taking control of the country, they must continue to engage with these leaders so that their aspirations are actually met. But we are in a new world. Who could have thought that in 2023, that a nation in Africa could ask the French to close their embassy and to take out their soldiers? We've seen that in Burkina Faso. We've seen that in Mali. And it's time for Africa to rise up. It's time for Africa to unite, as Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso are uniting now. And as we unite, we'll be the mighty force that will transform not just the African continent, but the African world and also humanity.
On August 1st, Syrians commemorated the 78th anniversary of the founding of the National Army. The Syrian Armed Forces seized the occasion to reaffirm their determination to carry out their mission to defend the homeland against terrorism and foreign invading troops. Hisham Wanous with the detail from Damascus.
On the occasion of the event, the Syrian Arab Army's land, air, and naval forces carried out a tactical operational exercise in conditions similar to real battle. Military exercises in which the Syrian armed forces demonstrated the failure of Western plans to disintegrate and weaken them after more than 12 years of foreign-imposed terrorist warfare.
These military exercises, including those conducted jointly with the Allied forces, besides demonstrating the steadfastness, strength, and unity of our national army, provide officers, non-commissioned officers, and soldiers with great combat experience that enables them to fulfill any military mission assigned to them in any part of the homeland in the present and in the future.
On this day, the soldiers pledged to follow the example of their fallen comrades in the battle against terrorism and its Western sponsors. Officers, non-commissioned officers, and soldiers pledged to continue fighting without hesitation until the last extremist strongholds are driven out and security and stability are restored throughout the homeland.
We are confident that the Syrian Arab Army will do its duty to preserve the achievements made in liberating the occupied lands, in consolidating the unity of the people and territorial integrity, and we are confident that it will come out victorious in the expected confrontation and the final and inevitable battle against the invading foreign troops, led by the U.S. troops which are occupying some part of Syrian soil.
Since its founding in August 1945, the Syrian Arab Army has upheld the slogan "Homeland, Honor and Loyalty" and has set eternal examples of defending the homeland and preserving its identity, as well as of resisting foreign colonialist projects. It is a task which, on the 78th anniversary of its foundation, it promises to carry out until it liberates every inch of Syrian soil from the foreign invading forces led by the United States and the Zionist occupation troops.
We have come to the end of this news brief. You can find this and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. And join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For Telesur English, I'm Ana Rosabal. Thank you for watching.